Hey, what's up guys? Icy Soul for Icy Duelist here, welcoming you to another episode of my beginner's guide to Yu-Gi-Oh! Today we're looking a little bit deeper into monsters. I know the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D tutorial covered them fairly decently, but I think they could have done more. So I'm going to give you guys all the extra information you guys are going to need about all your monster cards. Different effects, what's on the card, different kinds of monsters, the whole shebang about monsters. By the end of this video, you will know everything there is to know about Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster cards. So starting out here, we have this diagram that I made of a typical Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster card. We'll go through each of these things. Up here, right here, you'll see the card name right there. That's just basically, the name of the monster. It's kind of self-explanatory. Of course, here, as we've seen before, with the Xyz and everything, and the fusion and ritual monsters, this is obviously your level. And it says here, of course, for Xyz monsters, stars on the opposite side, and it's considered a rank. Self-explanatory. We've already covered that. This is some of the new information. Circulation is this thing that says limited edition right there. That tells you on like TCG cards, like this won't really matter if you're playing online, but for like TCG cards, it'll tell you if the card is first edition or limited edition, or it'll basically tell you what time this is coming out. But what I mean by that is like if this is the first time this card is being printed, or the second time, or whatever. So, that's basically just for the information for the card collector, basically. Next, we have a type. We're going to be going pretty deep into types in a couple moments, but, just for now, you see this is a Beast Warrior type. Keep that in mind. Now, of course, you got the card text. This is where you got your effects that happen. Of course, obviously, as this being an orange bordered card, this is an effect monster. I'm pretty sure the 5Ds tutorial made that clear. So this is the card text that tells you, the effect of the monster. No big deal. This little number down here is the card ID number. So this card ID number, which is 063533603, no matter if it's a first edition, limited edition, no matter what set it's in, that number will always be Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Bear, and that'll identify that that's what that card is. No matter, like I said, no matter the circulation, no matter the set, that number will always be Fire Fist Bear. So, this is actually kind of how online duel simulators actually kind of organize their cards. They organize them by card ID number, because that's how you can tell different cards from other cards, basically, through the universal language of math. So moving on to the bottom of the card here. Now this may seem like it's I'm gonna skip this one for now, but the copyright information and the Eye of Anubis right here may seem absolutely pointless because it doesn't affect gameplay whatsoever, but these are pretty important. And I'll tell you why. It's because on fake Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, these two things are often screwed up. You'll often be missing the copyright information and or the Eye of Anubis. The copyright information here just says, copyright 1996, Kazuki Takahashi, creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Base God. Yeah, I'm calling him Base God now. I don't care that there's a rapper Base God. I really don't care. And the Eye of Anubis right here, as you'll see, this little like holographic corner of the card here, is basically the official Konami seal of approval that this is a legitimate card. And if a card does not have the Eye of Anubis, even if it has everything else, if it does not have the Eye of Anubis, it is not an official card. So I felt that was important to point out that, you need the Eye of Anubis to be on the card to make sure it's an actual official card from Konami that you can actually legally play. Of course, you got your attack points and defense points. They covered this a little bit in the 5D tutorial. I just wanted to make sure, pointing it out again. Effect type. This is just a standard normal effect. but we'll be going more in depth into effect types in a minute. This is the set information. Basically, the first 4 or 5 letters and numbers in the set information indicate the actual pack or legendary collection or, you know, booster set or whatever that it comes from. In this case, this is CT10. I'm not 100% sure. I think this is a collector's tin. I think that means collector's tin 10. Usually the letters are significant to what the actual product is called. So I'm pretty sure this is from the collector's tin. So it says CT10. That means, you know, it's a collector's tin. And this the other following numbers, EN008, the EN means that it's an English card. You know, it's written in English. And 008 is the number of the card within the set. Because they arrange, when they create these sets, they, you know, just list them all off. And whatever the card is listed on the Konami official list for the set, that's what they print on the card. So as you see, like when they were making the list for this collector's tin set, and they put Fire Fist Bear in here, they made him the 8th card in the set. So that's just something to take into consideration. Badass card art. I mean, you don't really have to point that out. And over here is the attribute. This will come, the attribute and the type will often come into effect when you're building your deck, but we are, like I said before, we're going to go into building your deck in much more detail later. So this is an effect monster, as you know. My stuff is popping up, I apologize, all over the screen. Go away. Thank you. Next we have normal, or otherwise known as vanilla monsters. Normal is the official term for them, but vanilla is kind of like a slang term by, you know, the fans. And vanilla monsters are pretty much the exact same as effect monsters, except they don't have effects. As you see, this just says it's a spellcaster type, so it doesn't say effect at all, just a spellcaster. And the card text for normal monsters is often not integral to the gameplay. It's often just for Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore and Yu-Gi-Oh! Storytelling, and, you know, like in this case for Dark Magician, it says the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense. You know, that's just kind of like a neat little, like, tidbit about Dark Magician. It's not integral to the gameplay, so card text on normal monsters does not matter at all. And very rarely will you see normal monsters played. Sometimes you will, but for the most part, we're using effect monsters. So moving on to the next type of monster, these are tokens. And tokens aren't necessarily monsters, I mean they kind of are, but they're not necessarily a monster type because tokens can be whatever they're supposed to be. Tokens, in this case, is a scapegoat token. If a card effect calls for you to summon a token, and usually the card that tells you to summon the token will give you information about what that token is supposed to turn into. It's basically a blank monster. That's what you can think of it. It's like a blank monster, and the token is supposed to become whatever, you know, your card effect tells it to become. So like in Scapegoat, the spell card Scapegoat, for instance, this token would become a Scapegoat token, which is like a beast type, 0 attack, 0 defense, and it'll tell you exactly how to place it on the field and everything. So tokens are at the mercy of, you know, the card that summons them. But basically, the best way to think of them is like they're blank monsters. And these tokens do not go in your deck. They don't go in your extra deck. They kind of just go off to the side of the field. You can put them with, like, you know, your coin or your die if you're using them, or your calculator for calculating life points, you know, just off to the side with your extra Yu-Gi-Oh! Junk that's not necessarily part, you know, of the game. So going deeper into types, there are, I don't even know how many types there are, but I'm going to list them all off to you here. These are the types of monsters that you'll encounter in the game. These are literally every single type in the game. You have Aqua, Beast, Beast Warrior, Creator God, which notice this type is only used on the card, the Creator God of Light, Hakrati, and Dinosaur, Divine Beast, and only the 3 Egyptian gods, known as Slifer the Sky Dragon, Obelisk the Tormentor, and the Winged Dragon of Ra, are the ones that use this type. There are no other monsters that use it. And you have Dragon, Fairy, Fiend, Fish, Insect, Machine, Plant, Psychic, Pyro, Reptile, Rock, Sea Serpent, Spellcaster, Thunder Warrior Winged Beast Worm, which is the brand new type that was kind of just added recently with the Arc V mechanics, and Zombie. So those are the different types of monsters, and like I said, this comes into play when building decks, which we'll talk about later. Moving on to effect monster types. Now, I know I said there were these are actually just monster types in general. These can be both, you know, normal and effect monsters. They exist for all kinds of different, you know, whether it be normal or effect. These are the types of monsters. But there are specific effect types. These aren't, like I said, these are monster types. Don't get these confused with monster types. I know it is a bit confusing, but don't get these confused with monster types. These are the type of effect monsters, if that makes sense. So there are 5 different effect types. There are Tune, Union, Gemini, Spirit, and Tuner, along with normal. So you can count the 6th. 6 is just normal, like the Fire Fist Bear we saw before. That would be like a normal effect type monster. So going on to, we're going to go down the list here and talk about each of these. Tune effect monsters. Now, Tune monsters can attack your opponent directly, regardless if they have monsters on the field or not. Some Tune monsters require the spell card Toon World to be on the field. Others do not, but you know, you can check the card for details on that. So here's some examples of some Toon monsters. You have Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, Toon Dark Magician Girl, and Toon Gemini Elf. You'll notice they all have Toon in their name. There are some cards that have Toon in their name that actually aren't Toon monsters, but you know, you'll probably be able to tell them from the card text. And to distinguish, you know, what cards need Toon World to be on the field, and which ones don't. Blue Eyes Toon Dragon and Toon Dark Magician Girl here both do require Toon World to be on the field, while Toon Gemini Elf does not. And I think you can tell that quickly by the fact that Toon Gemini Elf is the only one to say Toon/effect. So I think that if it just says /Toon after the type, then more than likely you're probably going to need Toon World to be on the field. But if it actually has a /effect after the Toon, then you probably don't need Toon World to be on the field. But all Toon monsters can attack your opponent directly. So, you know, if you've seen the Yu-Gi-Oh! G1 anime, you'll know Pegasus loves this Toon deck, and it is kind of a rare deck to see these days. But it does, you know, you can still run these Toons. It's perfectly fine. Moving on to Union effect monsters. Now, Union monsters function similarly to equip spells. Don't worry about what that means. We're covering that in the next video when we talk about spells and traps a little bit further. But they function similarly to equip spells, but are allowed to unequip themselves by their own effects. Now, there are other older cards like Dark Necrofear, which have similar effects to the Union effect monsters, but they are not considered Union effect monsters since they are not labeled as such. So, moving to show you guys some examples of some Union monsters, we have Machina Gear Frame and Metallizing Parasite Soul Tight, it looks like. And then you see these both are labeled as Unions. So, that's what Union monsters are. Moving on to Gemini effect monsters. Now, Geminis, their effects are sort of locked when you first summon them on the field, and their effects are unlocked after performing a normal summon of another copy of them after they are already face up on the field. So, if you had one Gemini monster on the field, their effect would be locked until you summoned another one of those same Gemini monsters, like the same exact monster, onto the field. And then their effects would unlock. And so it says also, until these effects are unlocked, they are considered to be normal monsters while faced up on the field or in the graveyard. So any cards that affect normal monsters until your Gemini monster's effect is unlocked, any cards that target normal monsters will be able to target Gemini effect monsters, because they're technically not considered to be effect monsters until you summon that second copy. of them. If they are anywhere else but the field or the graveyard, they are considered to be effect monsters once again. So that's a quick rundown of Geminis. I'll show you a couple examples of Gemini monsters. You have Ancient Gear Knight and Dark Valkyria, both Geminis, that kind of have their effects locked from the beginning. Moving on to Spirit effect monsters. Now, the only real distinguishing factor about Spirits is that they return to the owner's hand at the end phase of the turn they were summoned. If you've seen the Yu-Gi-Oh! G1 anime, you'll know Noah, that computer boy genius, used a Spirit deck and played a couple of these cards. Both of these cards that I'm showing you here, Hino Kakatsuchi and Inaba White Rabbit, are two of the cards that he played in his deck. And they both do pretty much the same thing. They bounce back to the owner's hand at the end phase of the turn they were summoned. So that's basically Spirit monsters. Now, I'm sure you've heard the 5Ds tutorial mention the next monster. That's tuner monsters. And they don't really, they tell you kind of how to synchro summon, but they don't really tell you what tuners actually really are. So tuners are a special kind of effect monster that are used to synchro summon the white-bordered synchro monsters. And tuner monsters can be effect monsters, or they can be normal monsters. As you'll see here are a couple tuner monsters. We have Junk Synchron and Flamvel Guard. As you see, they are labeled as tuner instead of effect down here. One is an effect monster, the other is not. Because this one is an orange border, effect monster. This one's yellow border, normal or / vanilla monster. So there are other types of effects that initiate, but I'm not going to go into those. I don't even know a lot of the different effect types that initiate, but the only kind of effect that the effect initiation you're really gonna need to know are flip effect monsters. Now, flip effect monsters, the card text just starts with the word flip, all in caps with the colon. That's how you can tell it's a flip effect monster. And the flip effect monsters, their effects activate if the card is flip summoned, which means during your main phase 1 or 2, you flip it from, if it's already on the field, you flip it from face down defense position to face up attack position. That's that's called a flip summon. And you can do that as many times as you want, as long as you have, in a turn, as long as you have a face down monster, a face down defense position monster on the field, whether it be a flip effect monster or not. It can be any monster at all. Just to flip summon it, you flip it from face down defense position to face up attack position. And that works for all monsters, but flip effect monsters are the only ones that really get a specific effect from doing that. Or another way flip effect monsters activate their effects is if they are attacked into while they are face down into face down defense position. Which, this is something the 5Ds tutorial didn't cover. When a monster is in face-down defense position and it is attacked, the monster flips into face-up defense position before damage calculation. This is something they kind of didn't really cover. They just said, oh, the monster can be face-down or face-up, but that doesn't affect damage calculation. Of course, that's true, but, they don't tell you, what the deal is with that. So that's basically for your information. But flip effect monsters activate their effects in both of these ways. So either way that this happens, you can activate a flip effect monster's effect. Now, to show you a couple examples of flip effect monsters, we have Maneater Bug, which is a really old, famous one. It's a flip effect monster that says target one monster on the field, destroy that target. Really useful flip effect. And then there's Fire Sorcerer, a card I used to run, which says its flip effect is randomly select 2 cards from your hand and remove them from play to inflict 800 points of direct damage to your opponent's life points. So those are basically flip effect monsters, and I think that pretty much covers everything else you would ever need to know about monsters. So consider yourself an expert on Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters if you've followed along to this point. Of course, with any of the other tutorial, just like any other tutorials, if you have any questions that I didn't answer or answered poorly or anything at all, if you have questions about the game, just leave a comment on the video. I'll definitely get back to you and try to answer your question about the game. And that's basically it. You now know all there is to know about monsters, both effect and normal, and also Synchro, Xyz, Fusion, and Ritual. Wow, you've come a long way already. But as always, this is Icy Soul for Icy Duelist, signing out.